Welcome to the Botanical Medicine Study course with me, your host and instructor, Stephanie Georgieff. May, what's left of it, is still National Herb Month, and this channel has started new programming after 2 years of existence. And for those of you who would like to continue to enjoy Herb of the Week, it's now exclusively on Patreon for a mere $5 a month. That's $1.25 a week. And what can you get for that these days? There's no subscription newspaper or anything for $1.25 per week. But a $5 a month as a Patreon member on the Botanical Medicine Study Course Patreon page, you'll get weekly updates on all different aspects of the world of botanical medicine and exclusive videos on Herb of the Week. It would really help me and the channel if you would be so moved to do this. Now, this week, we'll be featuring dill on the Patreon page. And now that summer is semi-officially here, picnics, al fresco dining, and delicious dill from the garden are coming about together to make a delicious companions. So if you want to hear all the wonderful things you'll be doing for your body, if you employ dill in your regular nutritional regimen, definitely become a member of the Botanical Medicine Study course on Patreon, and the links are in the program notes on how to do that. So now on to regularly scheduled programming. We're going to focus on an aspect of botanical medicine which is ever so important in terms of access in the modern world. And this is the business of herbal medicine. Now, back in the dark ages, when I was in school, there was a big attempt by the pharmaceutical industry to use Congress to limit access to botanical medicines and vitamins. Now, I was living in Germany for a while, where natural medicine is a part of the natural health insurance program. And there were so many wonderful, high quality, accepted botanical medicines and homeopathic remedies that were just available. And so to come back to the United States when they're telling us we can only take 60 milligrams of vitamin C a day, and if we want more, we have to get a doctor's prescription, that was a shock. But because of America, we citizens took things into our own hand with the assistance of legislators and experts. And now we have what's called the DSHEA, Dietary Supplement Health Education Act. We also now have an Office on Integrative Medicine and an Office of Dietary Supplements, which, while the current administration is cutting and curtailing these institutions, we're hoping that the secretary who takes chainsaws to dead beached whales, he may want to keep these agencies in existence because they are focused on wellness and addressing chronic diseases uh, in a very natural way. So we hope rings eternal. But at the heart of the debate, which has been going on literally for hundreds of years in the West, is the money and power associated with the practice and access to healers. And if you want more information on that, you can watch the History of Herbal Medicine video on my Patreon page. And I think that's free, so it's definitely worth watching. Now, a recent article in the Natural Business Journal stated that the herbal supplement market is projected to grow from 14 billion in 2025 to 17 billion in 2028. And the projections are basically saying 1 out of every 5 supplement dollars is going to go to some sort of herbal supplement. Now, this study and projection was done before the tariff freedoms instituted by the current United States president, and it's anyone's guess when the actual policies how they will involve long-term range estimates. But much of the world purchases in terms of botanical medicine actually come from heavily tariffed nations. So it'll be interesting, maybe because of tariffs, we'll actually see an increase in the amount spent on herbal supplements. So it's anybody's guess on that, but it's still going to be rather significant. Now, ironically, with so much stress and anxiety these days, much of it very warranted. I think if anybody's sort of paying attention, it's very stressful to be alive right now. It seems that the herbal supplements addressing stress and anxiety are leading the bestseller list. And one is ashwagandha, which I have taken and prescribed, and I find it quite lovely. It really gets at the root causes of the physiological fallout from stress and anxiety. And also, the other one is functional mushrooms, and that's this little white creature on the right side of your screen, and that's lion's mane, which is very good for brain health. Now, these two items are leading the sales in what are called adaptogens, which means supplements that and products that help your body adapt to stress. And there's expected explosive growth in mental health supplements because of all the instability that's going on right now. So that's a very interesting statistic. Now, the other issue I just recently noticed was how different the US health food store access is from just 5 years ago. And this is what this report was in this journal. And for those of you who know, I used to work at Pharmaca Integrative Pharmacy, both in Irvine, which is in Orange County, and Napa, California, which is in the beautiful wine country. And I really loved working for this organization. First of all, their labor policies were awesome. And it was also a wonderful way to keep up to date on the supplement market because the supplement market is always evolving. And I must confess, the employee discount was amazing. So I was well stocked in many things. Now, unfortunately, Pharmaca is no longer in business. And recent trips to Whole Foods, which is now a subsidiary of a very large online retailer, means that many products that were easily available on the shelves of both of these wonderful retail establishments are not there anymore. Now, why is that? And the article in the Natural Business Journal went on to report that the e-commerce sales for herbal supplements are set to exceed 4.67 billion by 2028. And this shows that there has been a big reshaping in consumer purchasing trends. And a lot of uh, markets, retailers, and this actually has been very much of a struggle for the small independent health food store where you get wonderful service and excellent professional, insights on health, etc. So that's unfortunate. But it does show that there our consumer trends are being reshaped and, producers are trying to meet that challenge. Now, as we said, the adaptogens and stress relieving herbs are seeing unprecedented growth in the market, and ashwagandha is 80% sales are driven by mood and mental health applications. And this is going to overtake turmeric, which, for those of you who pay attention to these sorts of things, I always said turmeric was sort of like the sun-dried tomato and oat bran of herbal supplements in everything. But now adaptogens and specifically ashwagandha is going to overtake turmeric. And the mushrooms are also becoming quite lucrative. Now, You cannot see it on this channel, but I used to have this lovely dark or auburn hair, and it was natural at one point and later helped along with natural hair dye. And when the pandemic hit, I thought it would be great time to let my age appropriate color grow out. Now, even though I did my own hair, I always disliked the process, even though what I used was natural and non-toxic. I just found it to be a pain. And now I have this lovely silver white waist length hair. And what I mean by this little personal digression is I've been at this natural medicine thing for a very long time, witnessed by my hair. And that's more genes. It wasn't practicing natural medicine that made me turn gray. My whole family went gray very early. But I've seen all sorts of trends come and go. I was on the front line of educating the public and organizing for access to natural medicine and supplements. I came of age clinically in the midst of the AIDS epidemic, which basically really forced natural medicine into the spotlight because nobody was dealing with these poor people that were suffering with this terrible disease, and they were forced to figure things out on their own. And what that did was it really did force government agencies and research focus. And many of our modern, very successful AIDS drugs actually come from herbs and actually medicinal mushrooms. And obviously they're synthesizing these substances, but they noticed when people were taking these things way back when they were living. And so, on went the charge to figure out how to, make these things synthetically so that we can, address the problem. And these drugs now, AIDS is nothing to, you know, dismiss, but it's not a death sentence like it used to be way back in the 80s and 90s. So it's very manageable. And also, we have medical schools that are teaching courses on natural medicine. I actually had a few med students following me around in my practice way back when and was contributing to some of the curriculum in these integrative programs. So it's definitely a different world, and it's affected business. Now, the pandemic had quite a bit of influence on the herbal market in general. And we got used to having everything delivered because we were terrified of going outside of our houses. And we also, as a body of people, became very suspicious of Orthodox medicine because of the evolving and often confusing and contradictory information coming out daily. And I don't think that was purposeful. I think everything was happening so fast, and it just took a while for researchers to even, assemble data and understand what was going on. So I'm not faulting anybody for that, but these two things, the pandemic, we were all sitting in our homes shopping online and having things delivered, and also really being quite frustrated with medical options and lack of coherent messaging. There has been this very interesting development also through frank disinformation that was being pumped through social media, which was causing distrust in medical science in general and medical experts in particular. So those are definitely influencing the market in terms of herbal supplements and how people are shopping. Now, what is different now is that e-commerce is revolutionizing how consumers purchase herbal supplements. And you heard the statistics earlier in this video. There's growth exceeding 10%. The market research obviously was done before the current administration decided to take a sledgehammer to global trade. So a lot of these statistics may not be accurate, because we just never know what's going on. But this digital shopping shift is challenging the traditional retail channels. Um, and, I feel badly that Pharmaca has closed and Whole Foods, you just can't go shopping. Obviously, you can order online for these supplements, but there's something kind of nice about going to a store. And we're also seeing that healthcare practitioners, from naturopaths to chiropractors, acupuncturists, um, as well as a lot of training for medical doctors and nurses. A lot of healthcare professionals are becoming increasingly influential in supplement distribution. And this practitioner channel is expected to nearly double uh, by 2028. So I must say, though, people like myself who went to school and took board exams, I'm a little annoyed when Academy Award winning actresses screaming right-wing conspiracy theories and fired cable news pundits tout various supplements and diet trends on their platforms with links on their sites to very expensive products. Now, people who are not educated or experienced in any sort of healthcare other than by watching videos on the internet have become quite wealthy in the process. Not only does this bother me that there's no formal training other than reading an interesting article in a self-help magazine, these people also make a mockery of sound botanical medicine and ancient healing techniques for health and healing because they're lumped in with, you need to put your male testicles under a heat lamp or, uh, steam your private parts as a woman for health and longevity. Now, when we lump all of these trends with the uncertainty of the pandemic, you know, the, you know, the reality of modern healthcare, where doctor visits are 15 minutes long, if you're lucky, and often family practitioners are hard to find, long-term trust and relationships with healthcare providers are actually quite rare. And insurance practices mean that we are often not able to continue with our physicians long term. And I can tell you, I was always being yelled at when I practiced with physicians and chiropractors that I was taking too long with my patients and needed to speed up the process. And I just was always, I don't know how to speed someone through their life story. I don't know how to do that. So, with all this fascinating and factoring in, along with the modern, particularly Western approach to life in general, we're always in search of improving ourselves. And the practice of natural medicine is now being pigeonholed into what is termed the wellness industry. And enter in a newly released book by fashion journalist Amy LaRocca. And what the heck? In the United States, we have a Health and Human Service Secretary who is a former drug addict with a degree in environmental law. So why not have a fashion journalist critiquing the practice of natural medicine? Sarcasm intended. Now, what she did was she wrote this book, How to Be Well, Navigating Our Self-Care Epidemic, One Dubious Cure at a Time. And LaRocca has been on quite the PR tour these days because her book just got published. And what I find interesting is that one of LaRocca's main criticisms of the wellness industry is that expert science is absent and those touting natural lifestyles have no background in the area. And this criticism is coming from a fashion journalist. So, lumping natural medicine into the beauty industry, it is easy to apply criticisms regarding the control of women's health esteem, tied up into what supplements they're taking and what diet they're following. And many of LaRocca's criticisms, I must admit, are quite valid. But she also does not have any other experience than being a consumer. And it does not appear that the fashion editor really has any, expert opinion involved in her criticism. And she approached the typical consumer for the wellness industry as, quote, the well woman who is serene, eats clean organic food, and glows internally from all of her supplements and special creams. Now, when I was back in naturopathic school, when the profession was not on the spell check, there were several camps of practitioners, and those who were into homeopathy tended to be much more intellectual and usually very slender. And the herbalists, of which I am, or the rowdy bunch, and a bit more earthy and flowy. I would say more sensual. Our potlucks were fabulous. And the nature cure people were super into diet and water cure, and they looked all like back to land people. And then the Chinese medicine people were combining everything and practicing Tai Chi during the breaks. Now, the wellness industry happened when Wall Street, and this was in the 90s, saw a 50% yearly growth in profit and investment margins for 10 straight years. And this was mainly due to the women who LaRocca mocks in her book. Middle-aged women married with small children and some sort of graduate degree, enabling them to have above average incomes. Now, LaRocca does recognize that the failures of modern medicine have spurred people to find solutions for themselves. She also, in my opinion, does not really look at the history of medicine in the United States because the colonists and early American citizens wanted nothing to do with any sort of authority on any level. And these people were also an ocean away from medical doctors and apothecaries. So they had to depend on nature. And the natives actually got a lot of knowledge from the natives to help them figure out how to treat diseases. Now, I have a dear friend who is a historian, and he states that history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Now, when I started my career, it did bother me that natural medicine was limited to those who could afford it because the insurance and legislative climate restricted access. It bothered me mainly because the medicines for most of what, not all, but most of what ails us are literally outside of our windows. Modern practices of clean water and personal hygiene uh, count for, I would say, 80% of good health. So does good nutrition, even if your genetics are challenging. Now that the government in the United States is dismantling all regulations for public sanitation, hygienic standards for food, and so on, while simultaneously restricting access to healthcare, we may see quite a resurgence in disease, but we do have ways to meet this challenge. Is to get active in local and national politics. The other is to learn what plants can do to facilitate your health. And if possible, grow them in your own gardens and figure out how to create things like teas, tinctures, and salves. Now, this isn't going to address all problems, and medical science has its place, specifically with diagnosis in terms of blood work and x-rays. Uh, all those things are really excellent. And because of research dollars allocated by the United States, Foundation for Science, our diagnostic techniques are far superior than they were even 10 years ago. And our medicines are actually getting better because of this research. But we're facing a rhyming verse in our history. So it's really a good idea to really educate yourself. And if you're going to participate in this wonderful increase of the supplement market, it would help if you learn how to do that on your own. So this is Stephanie Georgieff saying thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with me. I hope you're enjoying this new content. And if you want, you can always continue with Herb of the Week on the Patreon page. It's now exclusively on Patreon. And the information is in the program notes. And until next time, be Well,